Before we get into the story, family drama alert. Today, we're diving into a wild Reddit story about a teenager who had to deal with a thieving sister, an enabling mom, and the threat of military school. Was he a saint? Nope. Was he in the right? Absolutely. Get ready for some serious sibling rivalry, parental favoritism, and a whole lot of what the actual F? Mom wants to defend my sister for stealing from me and wants to send me to military school. This happened when I was 14, roughly a year give or take before my parents divorced. My younger sister, let's call her Allegra, was always spending her allowance like it was water, especially on makeup, mall food, video games, and clothes from Hot Topic. While I had an allowance too, my dad had me earn it more by cleaning house and doing yard work because my sister never lifted a finger unless Dad was there to supervise her. My mother never made her do any chores either, unless it was to clean her room to get some extra cash. I mowed lawns, picked up discarded cans around the neighborhoods to cash in for the 5-cent deposit, and did some other odd jobs around the neighborhood. At the time, I was saving to buy a scooter to get around town on. Over the course of 2 years, doing odd jobs and hoarding most of my allowance, I managed to save about $2,000. But getting that money built up was not easy, mainly because of my sister. She knew all the little hiding places I used to hide my stash of money and would steal from it. Here's a highlight that's paraphrased from what I remember. Me: "Hey sis, did you take my money again?" Sis: "What? And no." She used to stutter when caught in a lie. Me: "You're a terrible liar. There's $100 missing from my savings." Sis: "Leave me alone. I didn't do it." Starts fake crying and runs to Mom. "Mommy, bro is picking on me." Me: "She stole from my savings again." Mom starts snapping her fingers at me. "Shut up. Can't you see Mama's little girl is upset? She said she didn't do it, so she didn't do it, and that's all there is to it. So if you don't let this go, I'll ground you." Me: "I know she did it, and if you don't get the money back, I'll get Dad's help." Mom: "Now there's no need for that. Besides, you don't have any proof she took your money." Me: "Yes, I do. I keep a ledger for each and every dollar I add to it. The total 3 days ago was this. Now there's only so much. $100 is missing, and you know she's stolen from my savings several times already. Plus, I know Sis already spent all of her allowance this month, yet you took her out shopping yesterday. Where'd she get that money from, huh?" Mom thinks for a second, then scowls. "You know what? You're grounded. Go to your room or I'm going to get the belt." I could have argued the issue further, but if there's one thing I learned in that household, it was when to stop talking and just call my father. So, without another word to either of them, I walked to my room and slammed the door. Then, I pulled out my little brick Nokia cell phone that I had back then and dialed my dad at work. He didn't pick up, so I left a message explaining everything. He called me back about an hour later and said he'd sort it out. Not long after, I heard the landline house phone ringing, followed by my mom yelling at Dad over the phone in the kitchen. I didn't catch much trying to listen from my room other than Mom trying to justify her actions, but that never worked when she was in the wrong. So she ended up yelling out something to the likes of, "Fine, if she really took the money, then you can pay it back because she already spent it." Then my mother threw open my door to scream at me, "I can't believe you ratted me out, you little ingrate. After all I do for you, you couldn't just let a little money slide?" Me: "So you admit that my sister took it then?" Mom sneers, "You know what? I don't care. Girls need more money than boys. You should just be giving it to her anyway. It wasn't even that much." Me: "It wasn't just a little money and you know it. She stole $100, and even if it was only $1, I'd still want it back. You wouldn't want someone stealing from your purse. It's no different if Sis steals from me. She's guilty and you know it. And I want that money returned one way or another. I worked hard for it and she did nothing." Mom: "My baby doesn't have to do anything. She's a princess and deserves to be treated like one." Me: "That isn't my problem. She can go be a princess away from me and away from my stuff." Mom: "That's it, you little shit. I'm going to beat your ass." Me, standing up and facing her eye to eye, as I was already as tall as her at 14 and decently strong from all the outdoor work I was doing. "Go ahead and try it. I won't let you because I didn't do anything wrong. My mother froze in place for a moment, then let out a loud roar and swung her arm to try and knock something off my dresser, but she swung too low and hit the dresser itself, which I imagine really hurt. She grabbed her hand to try and hold in the pain and was giving me a furious look while gnashing her teeth. Then she just turned around and walked out. I heard her make a ruckus yelling and smacking the wall as she went down the hall, down the stairs, into the kitchen to just do her usual when she didn't get her way, which was to go to her wine fridge and proceed to get drunk. My sister was watching me from her bedroom door and she looked at me horrified before fleeing back inside her room and slamming the door. Mom was her ace in the hole for getting away with the stuff she did to me, and that was quickly changing. A few hours later, my dad came home from work and marched my sister into my room to come and see me. He made her admit to stealing from me and then told me I was not grounded. Sis refused to even look at me the entire time she was being made to apologize, and she did so in the most quiet and squeaky voice at first, till my dad repeatedly told her to speak up till she was practically yelling it. Then Dad gave me a $100 bill to make up for what my sister took and said she was grounded for a week and the stolen money would come out of her allowance, to which she started bawling and calling Dad awful before running off to her room. My mom just sat at the back patio getting drunk with her favorite wine and ignoring all of us. She never apologized to me and even at times acted like the whole situation never happened. Also, my sister still got her next allowance anyway. Only it was my mom who gave it to her instead of my dad that time. A few days later, on my dad's day off from work, we went to a local store and he bought me a combination safe to keep my money and other small valuables in. We didn't tell either my mother or sister I had it. It was set for a 4-digit code. If I remember, the code I used back then was 4962. I put all of my money into the safe and locked it, then put it in the back of my closet. A few weeks went by, and one day after I'd gotten back from mowing a few neighbours' lawns, I found my room had been ransacked. I called my mother to tell her what Sis did to my room. Mom, of course, denied it. Mom, my baby didn't do this. Me, well, then did you? Mom, no. Me, well, it could only have been one of you, as this room was clean when I left and no one else was here. Mom, visibly annoyed at being caught by logic. Fine, but if she did do it, then so what? You had it coming by not being nicer to her anyway, then stormed off. I called my dad again and left another message on his work answering machine about what happened. Then I went to my sister's room and told her I knew she was the one who tore up my room. And before she could even try to answer me, I stated she couldn't get to my money anymore because I'd locked it away in a safe. That made her throw an absolute tantrum, and of course, evil Mama Bear came running to her rescue, but I just repeated that Sis couldn't get at my money anymore and went back to my room to clean it up while my sister kept screaming in her room for like the next 20 minutes. Nothing was really missing or broken, just thrown and scattered around. I picked everything up and put it back the way it was. Admittedly, it was the smuggest I'd ever felt cleaning my room. But the next day, I found it torn up again, and this time my window was broken as well. Sis had hurled the safe out the window because she couldn't get it open. I called my father right away, and when both my parents got home from work, my sister fully admitted to having done it like she was proud of herself. My mother actually tried to side with her by saying I shouldn't have gotten the safe in the first place, but my dad chewed her out and said he got it for me because he was sick and tired of my sister stealing from me every time she stole money from me and spent it. My dad had to reimburse me since my mom never would. We had to have the whole window from my room replaced, and my dad got me a lock for my door and even a combination key lockbox that contained the key to my room next to the door. My sister ended up grounded for a month for breaking my window, and she spent that whole time just sulking in her room whenever Dad was home. Mom always let her go back to doing what she wanted, like playing video games or watching TV and stuff till my dad got off work. I didn't bother to say anything because I knew if I did, both my sister and my mom would have gone out of their way to make me more miserable. After her month-long grounding was over, my sister resorted to begging me for money every time she spent all of her allowance. But I just called her out that she'd never pay it back because she never saves anything, And just to be funny, I drew up an IOU to see if she'd actually sign it in front of Dad later. She tore the paper in half and went crying to Mom again about how I was being mean to her. Her and Mom would try to make me cough up the money for her, but I just reminded her what Dad would do. So if my sister wanted any more cash, it wasn't going to come from me. After this, my mom actually tried to get me sent to military school, but Dad didn't let her. Also, for those wondering why my dad just didn't help me get a savings account back then, I really don't know. I guess saving it in cash was just how we did things. Update 1. The time I got my mother to walk right into my door. Shortly after my dad gave me a safe for my money, he also got me a deadbolt lock for my door with a wall-mounted lock box that required a code to get the key because my sister threw my safe through my bedroom window. We installed the lock and lock box together while my mom and sister weren't home. When my sister first walked by my room after coming back, I saw her look at the lock and then go running to get Mom. They both came storming up the stairs to be greeted by my dad and I. The following is paraphrased from what I remember. Mom snaps her fingers a few times and points, "What the hell is that?" Dad, "A door lock." Mom, "I know what the EF it is. Why is it there?" Dad, "Because you never see fit to punish or stop our Allegra for stealing from OP or ransacking his room, so from now on the lock stays." Mom, "He's only 14 and this is my house. He can't have a lock on the door." Dad, "No, this is our house, but last I checked I paid most of the mortgage and the bills. You hardly pay anything and I'm tired of you favouring Allegra so much that OP keeps having to suffer for it." Mom, "Well then, I demand you tell me the code for the lockbox at least." Dad, deadpan stare. "I'm not doing that because you've shown I can't trust you anymore." Mom then blew her top and stormed down the stairs. My sister just stood there looking pouty and then slowly walked to her room. Things were good with a new lock, and it became habitual for me to lock it every time I left my bedroom. I saw my sister and mother staring at me on numerous occasions when I input the code to get the key, but I always made sure to use my hand or my body to block their line of sight. They really didn't like that, but there wasn't anything they could do about it. Then, one day, late in the month, my sister came begging me for $40 to buy a video game she really wanted. Me, "Why do you keep coming to me to ask for money when you and I both know you'll never pay it back?" Sis, "I'll pay it back, I swear." Me, "No, you won't. You spend everything you have in them sum each month, and you know you'd want to just spend all of your allowance rather than pay me back. It's what you always do." Sis, "No, I don't." Me, "Well then, how about we test that?" I then went into my room and got a piece of paper and pen, and then Han wrote an IOU contract that stated Allegra would pay me back the $40 upon getting her monthly allowance, and the IOU was to be co-signed by Dad as a witness. Always have a witness for contracts, folks. Allegra read the paper, then started sniffling. She tore it in half and then ran crying to Mom yet again. It was what she did every single time she didn't get her way. Sis mockingly sobbing, "Mom!" Mom, "What is this, my little princess? What did OP do now?" Allegra, "She wanted to borrow money, so I asked her to sign an IOU in front of Dad, then she freaked out." Mom, "And why would you do that? She just wanted to borrow a little money." Me, "Would you sign the IOU as well to make sure she pays the money back?"
I'm sensing some serious enmeshment issues between your mom and sister. It's not normal for a parent to be that invested in their child's conflicts, especially when they're in the wrong. Your sister is going to have a tough time in the real world if she doesn't learn some personal responsibility. It was about time your dad left that monster, but seriously, what the heck did he ever see in that woman in the first place? How could he ever fall for such a terrible excuse for a human being and stay with her until she cheated on him? I know you said your dad was really into marriage is sacred and divorce is a last resort, but the guy gave that woman way too many chances. The lady is entirely psycho and obviously has some mental disorder.
Everyone's praising the dad, but honestly, where was he during all this? He only showed up to play hero after the fact. If he knew his wife was this unhinged and his daughter was stealing, why let it go on for years? Feels like he used his son as a pawn in his failing marriage rather than actually protecting him.
This is messed up on so many levels. Your mum's behavior is straight up narcissistic and emotionally abusive, favoring one child to the point of enabling their bad behavior and punishing the other for being responsible is creating a toxic dynamic that will have lasting consequences for both kids.
I agree. The mom's behaviour is out of line, but let's not forget the dad's role in this. He seems pretty passive and emotionally absent. Why didn't he step in sooner and put a stop to the stealing and favouritism?
You're right. The dad could have been more proactive, but at least he eventually stepped up and supported OP. It sounds like he was trying to maintain peace in the household, but the mom's actions made that impossible.
The military school threat is particularly insidious because it shows how boarding schools are often weaponized by parents as punishment rather than education. It's a common thread in these stories. The troubled teen industry preys on parents like this mom promising to fix problematic children who are actually just standing up to abuse.
The real tragedy here isn't the stealing. It's watching a mother systematically destroy her daughter's future. By teaching her that theft is acceptable, that tantrums solve problems, and that she's entitled to others' possessions, she's created a person who will never function in adult society. The stolen money is nothing compared to the cost of those lessons.
It's sad that your mom's favoritism caused so much damage to your family. I hope you and your sister can repair your relationship someday.
This whole thing with the IOUs is a bit much. It's just money, and it's your sister. You should be helping her out, not treating her like a stranger.
I'm curious about the cultural context here. In some cultures, it's common for parents to have a favorite child, often the oldest or the only son. While it's not ideal, it's not always seen as abusive or malicious. It's possible that the mom's actions were influenced by her cultural background.
I'm curious, how old is your sister now? Has she changed at all?
This whole situation screams unresolved trauma. Your mom's outburst, the favoritism, the desperation to control you, it's like she's projecting her own issues onto her kids. I hope you and your dad can get some therapy to work through this.
This is giving me intense flashbacks to my own childhood. It's like staring into a mirror of my past. My mom always favored my brother, the golden child, the star athlete, the charmer. Me? I was the problem child, the one who could never measure up, the constant source of disappointment. Every mistake I made was magnified, every accomplishment minimized. My brother, on the other hand, could do no wrong. Even when he was caught red-handed stealing from me, my mom would find a way to twist it around to make me the bad guy. It was like living in a parallel universe where logic and fairness had no place. It's a pain that stays with you, a wound that never fully heals. You start to doubt yourself, to question your worth. You wonder if you're really as bad as they make you out to be. It takes years, sometimes decades, to break free from that toxic programming and realize that you deserve love, respect, and fairness just like anyone else.
This story is a perfect example of how not to parent. Your mom's blatant favoritism and your dad's passive approach created a toxic environment for both you and your sister. You were forced to grow up fast and become independent, while your sister was coddled and spoiled. It's no wonder you ended up with trust issues and a strained relationship with your family.
This reads like a masterclass in how family wealth inequality creates lifelong rifts. One kid learning to work and save while the other is taught to take. It's basically a microcosm of every inheritance dispute I've ever seen. The money itself is irrelevant. It's about the fundamental lessons of effort versus entitlement.
This story is a bit one-sided. We're only hearing OP's perspective. It's possible that the sister has her own side of the story and that the mom's actions were motivated by factors we don't know about. It's always important to get the full picture before making judgments.
I'm going to play devil's advocate here and say that maybe your mum had her reasons for favoring your sister. And maybe your sister has some underlying emotional or behavioral issues that you don't know about. Or maybe your mum was going through a tough time herself and wasn't able to be the parent you needed her to be. It's easy to judge from the outside, but we don't know the full story.
This story reminds me of the importance of setting boundaries with family members. You did the right thing by getting a lock for your door and refusing to lend money to your sister without an IOU. It's important to protect yourself, both physically and financially, from toxic people, even if they are family.
This is giving me major anxiety just reading it. I can't imagine the stress of constantly having to protect your belongings from your own family. AP, I hope you're in a much better place now, both mentally and physically. Sending you virtual hugs.